Welcome back for week 4's wide receiver ranking tier list. There'll be some names that are going to be they might make you upset. They're going to be a little lower than you expected, and there's going to be some names you picked up off the waiver wire. They're going to be higher than you expected. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. I'm coming out with these each and every single week. Waiver wire pickups, quarterback rankings, running back rankings, you name it, I'm putting it out there. So make sure you're subscribed. And I go live every single Sunday, 1 hour before the kickoff to help you with your tough start-sit decisions. So let's get into it. Number 1 on the list, Puka Nacua, 100-plus scrimmage yards in every single game so far this season. He's locked and loaded every single week. JSN coming in at number 2. He plays Arizona. They didn't need him for the second half of last week's game versus the Saints. He's just too good. The Saints are awful. Fire him up. Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Cleveland. The Browns arguably have the best defense in the NFL, but they are better against the run than they are the pass. So don't overthink it. Amon-Ra still in your lineup as a lock. And then number 4, Justin Jefferson versus Pittsburgh in Dublin, Ireland. So it's 6:30 a.m. for me here on the West Coast. I don't know if the worst, thankfully Justin Jefferson's healthy, but the worst part is when you have a player who is a game time decision and they play on one of these international games, it's absolutely abysmal. Carson Wentz back in at quarterback again in week 4. You just keep playing Justin Jefferson regardless of the quarterback. And then Nico Collins, he's playing at Tennessee, coming off his best game of 2025. The Titans have given up the 5th most points to wide receivers, and it should keep that rolling despite the 38.5-point over-under. And then Malik Neighbors coming in at 6 versus the Chargers. A quarterback change is happening in New York. Jackson Dart is taking over for Russell Wilson after just 3 games. The volume should be there, but it's unpredictable how much they're going to have Dart throw in his first NFL start. The Chargers will put up points, so let's see if the Giants can do that as well. And then Jamar Chase coming in, travels to Denver. People are freaking out about Jamar Chase, and I get it. Just like Jefferson, though, you keep playing your studs each and every single week and hope that they figure it out. The bad matchup, it gets Pat Surtain again, but you don't have any other options to start over him, so Chase is still in your lineups. Devontae Adams, number 8. Versus the Colts. I was concerned before the season started, to be honest, how both these Rams would eat at the same time, and they proved they're a 1A, 1B situations to start Adams each and every single week. And there's not really a 1A, 1B here, but Roma Dunze clearly taken over the wide receiver 1 role. It's the 3rd easiest matchup versus the Raiders. Roll him out with confidence in week 4. And then Garrett Wilson wraps up the top 10 here, goes to Miami. Tyrod Taylor was in at quarterback last week, and it looks like Justin Fields should be here for Monday Night Football. That's probably the hope, despite him having a better game with Tyrod Taylor. But yeah, tons of volume. He's a better version of Chris Olave is the way that I'd like to see it, and you're just happy if he gets a TD. The volume's certainly there. And as I was saying, you start your studs each and every single week. A.J. Brown is no exception. You started him the first 2 weeks, you're pretty unhappy. What do I do in week 3? You start him up again. And then they can have these type of performances, 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, it just reminds me of that John Wick scene where he's like, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
And I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Love the matchup versus the Bucks, 45.5-point over-under, and I'd take the over. And then number 12, Drake London versus Washington. I don't think London's a problem. I think it's a Penix problem. You stay in the Flames again. This is one of your studs, but man, it's not been fun for the Drake London people who drafted him in probably the end of the first, beginning of the second. You just stay in the Flames. It's still. Feel free to hit me with any start-sit decisions that you have with Drake London. Any comments you're throwing in there, I'm answering them all, even if it's not Drake London related. But if you have any other ones, if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe, because on Sundays, I do go live every single Sunday, 1 hour before kickoff to help you with your tough start-sit decisions. And then Emeka Egbuka. You could argue he could be a little bit higher, but I'm comfortable putting him at 13. That seems very high already. Versus Philadelphia here. Larger workload incoming with Mike Evans sidelined for a few weeks. He won't get everything, but I would expect the volume to be uptick because he was kind of riding on those touchdowns, and that was kind of my concern. What does it look like when he doesn't get a touchdown? Well, we saw, and he had 6 for 85 in a game where Mike Evans ended up leaving. So wouldn't be surprised if he's the top wide receiver here this week, and he's number 13 on my list. And then Teddarella McMillan. We're going with another rookie. versus New England in New England. He's not practicing as of Wednesday, but if he's active on game day, I'm certainly confident in starting him up in my lineup. Patriots allow you to throw on them. They do not allow you to run on them. So McMillan is getting everything for the Panthers. Start him up. And then George Pickens versus the Packers. It only took a CeeDee Lamb injury for me to actually like Pickens. I'm not a big fan of the Pickens experiment typically because you chase the good games and then he gives you a bad game. And then when he plays a bad game, you've benched him and now he has a good game. So that happens. But with CeeDee Lamb out, they've got no one else to throw to. Are they going to throw to, Jalen Tolbert? Turpin? I like Tolbert more. He fits profile just a little bit more to play on the outside, to play in that CeeDee Lamb role. But even at the end of the day, George Pickens should see a lot of volume in this matchup versus the Packers. And then Ricky Pearsall, man, he's looking pretty good so far on the season. He plays Jacksonville here. He's not practicing as of Wednesday, but I'm not too terribly worried on that. If he plays, just like Tedero McMillan, he's in my lineup. 2 100-yard games, one with Mac Jones, one with Brock Purdy, so he's a little bit quarterback-proof, so what we've seen. And Brock Purdy is trending for playing, so it's nice having your actual starting quarterback in the lineup. And then Tyreek Hill, not the Tyreek we remember, but even in his down season last season, he ended up eating up the Jets. 10 for 115 and a touchdown. Finally getting more targets his way, so that's what we like to see. And then speaking of targets, Zay Flowers. I mean, he was on pace for 170 targets, and if you're not aware, Jamar Chase, the number 1 wide receiver in football last season, had 175 targets. So we knew the targets had to come down. I wasn't expecting him to go all the way down to 3 targets in a game where there were 68 points. Yeah, let's just see if he can get back to a middling wide receiver 2 for us against the Chiefs. Be pretty happy with that. And then Cortland Sutton, he's finally Bo Nix's favorite target. Broncos are favored by 7.5, so let's hope that the Bengals can keep up and make it somewhat competitive. And then I'm putting all 3 of these guys here together for the Chargers. The Giants, this matchup here is nice. They have the second easiest matchup for wide receivers. The problem with the Chargers, and I've said it a few times here on other episodes, but only 2 of the 3 guys can eat on any given week. And sometimes it's going to be 1. If Justin Herbert has a bad game, not everyone here is still going to eat. It's been, unfortunately, the guy you drafted the highest, Ladd McConkey, who has been the odd man out. Hasn't found the end zone and really hasn't seen the target volume that we were kind of expecting. I don't continue to see him being just completely allergic to the end zone, but just keep that in mind that not all of these guys can have a great game each and every single week. And then Jacoby Myers comes in at 23 for me. 4th easiest schedule versus the Bears. Trey Tucker has emerged a little bit, and he's a drive killer. I think that's kind of what we saw there just in last week's game. If Trey Tucker catches a deep ball for a touchdown, no one else can gain any points. It's all Trey Tucker. I'm excited and expecting to see a little bit more of what we saw in weeks 1 and 2. And then Deebo Samuel, you talk about down weeks. We were just talking about this game here. It's one where they simply just didn't really need him. Once they got into the 4th quarter and they're up 2 scores, it's like, hey, let's just not really give anything to Deebo here, and we're fine with that. Atlanta, that's where he's traveling to play the Falcons. They are the 4th hardest matchup for wide receivers, but good thing for Deebo, as he likes to call himself a wide back, they're going to manufacture touches for him, and Terry McLaurin is trending for not playing from what I can tell so far through practice reports. I'm fine with having him as a low-end wide receiver 2 with a little bit of upside. And then Chris Olave travels to Buffalo. He's first in targets in the NFL, tied with Puka Nacua, but they just haven't been as good. So 16.5-point underdogs in this game. Venture to guess that he's going to get a bunch more of those bad targets, and he hasn't found the end zone yet. But with that many targets, the end zone should be coming soon. Marvin Harrison Jr., man, if you are in a league that gives you points for unrealized air yards, Marvin Harrison Jr. might be leading the league. He had 2 egregious drops just last week. 1 was a guaranteed touchdown, and 2, if he just made a move after the ball, could probably have been a touchdown as well. Now he gets the Seahawks' 2nd best against wide receivers. He just doesn't look confident on the field. I want my wide receiver to be a diva and kind of beg for the ball like Malik Neighbors does, or Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a high upside flex, but scary to start as a wide receiver too, certainly. Speaking about scary start, Brian Thomas Jr., I've got countless questions on what do I do with him. The 49ers are the 6th best against wide receivers. A lot of people have put the blame on Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, the same guy who suppressed JSN in his rookie season, or Roma Dunze. But Brian Thomas Jr. needs to take a little bit of the blame for this. He's in the same boat as Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a high upside flex, but he definitely shouldn't be a wide receiver 2 for you until we see some changes. And I'm perfectly fine starting Michael Pittman Jr. versus the Rams if if you wanted to guarantee you got points opposed to those last two guys, I'm perfectly fine with having Michael Pittman in there. So, looked good when he wasn't shadowed against Patrick Surtain, and you can't run against the Rams, so that bodes well with maybe a little bit more of a passing attack for the Colts, despite them trying to run it with Jonathan Taylor, I'm sure. And then T. Higgins, absolutely miserable start here. This is exactly what I was talking about last week. You can't take 2023 Jake Browning's splits with T. Higgins and just say, oh, they have a connection. Things change, and you should change. You shouldn't have T. Higgins in your lineup here in week 4 unless it's a flex and you're very desperate. And then Devonta Smith at Tampa Bay, uptick in passing work. The Eagles in their comeback win versus the Rams. If you expect this one to be close, which Vegas has as a 3-point spread, then the Eagles should run the ball early unless they're required to throw the ball. And then speaking of required to throw the ball, if you're down in Thursday Night Football or you're just an underdog in your matchup, Jameson Williams is your best bet. He's a plug and play for a home run on any given week. Fun fact about Jameson Williams, he's only had more than 5 catches one time in his 36-game career. And then DK Metcalf versus the Vikings in Dublin, Ireland. The Vikings are number 1 against wide receiver so far through 3 weeks. I expect a lot of targets coming DK's way, but they're perfectly fine, they being the Steelers, are perfectly fine with just using Jaylen Warren, getting 2 to 3 yards per carry each and every single week, and winning close games by grinding them out. I'm not excited at all to start DK Metcalf here this week. Jalen Waddle, the volume isn't there. He's found the end zone for the past 2 weeks, so that's awesome, but he's clearly 3rd in the pecking order behind Tyreek Hill and Devon Achane. And Matthew Golden. Now, I don't do starts of the weeks, but versus Dallas, this one's intriguing because we just saw what Russell Wilson did to them, 450 yards. We just saw what Caleb Williams did to them, throwing for 4 passing touchdowns. Jordan Love can get it done. Now, the Cowboys, they are the easiest matchup for opposing wide receivers. Golden's snap share has gone up each and every single week. Jaden Reed's first game out, and we saw Matthew Golden lead the Packers receivers in receptions in week 3. He ran the 2nd most routes, only behind Romeo Doubs. And somehow, if he's out there on your waivers, or if you could trade for him on the cheap, I certainly would. This would be the week that I would expect him to blow up. And then Terry McLaurin versus Atlanta in Atlanta. He's meeting with a specialist on Wednesday for his core/quad injury. If he plays, he's a flex for me, but meeting with a specialist on Wednesday doesn't give me a lot of hope. He's trending more, in my opinion, towards doubtful or even out in this game. So just keep that in mind. And then DJ Moore versus the Raiders. It's a good matchup. It's 3rd easiest for wide receivers, but he's clearly not the wide receiver 1 anymore on his own team. So just kind of keep that in mind. Then Jordan Addison versus the Steelers. This is that Ireland game here again. His first game back from suspension, so I'm not expecting them to fully ease him in. Maybe like 70% of the snaps, 80% of the snaps. But I'm trying to wait before throwing him into my lineup. I understand if you had the CeeDee Lamb or the Mike Evans injury, you got to do what you got to do, and you can do worse than Jordan Addison, that's for sure. And then Jerry Jeudy, 8.5-point underdogs. His usage has gone down each and every single week. He's not startable until there's a quarterback change or we see some signs of life from Jerry Jeudy. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, again, Dart is coming in here. They're facing the Chargers. We know that the Chargers are going to put up points. What do we get out of Dart? Who knows? We really don't know. We haven't seen any sample size with him so far. So I would expect Wan'Dale and Scattaboo to be the checkdowns, if anything. And then I got 2 wide receivers here, the Buffalo wide receivers. They're 16.5-point favorites, so you know that the Bills are going to be scoring a lot of points. You'd hope they would be able to keep it close so they have to pass more, but we've seen it just like the past 2 weeks. They haven't needed Josh Allen to really pass it a lot. Betting on Spencer Rattler for a comeback or to keep it close is not something that I would advise anyone to do. And then Hollywood Brown in the E tier is a revenge game for him. That doesn't really mean anything, but he's a home run threat for you, of course. And then home run threat, no other than waiver wire wonder Trey Tucker. 3 touchdowns just last week, 8 for 145. High upside, low floor in week 4. But the Bears are the 4th easiest matchup for wide receiver. So he's playing all the snaps. He's finally getting the targets. Let's see what he could do in week 4 and prove it to us that he is real. And then the Titans wide receivers. I'm not starting any of them, but if you have to start one, start Eli Manor. And then just a few other guys here, Christian Kirk, Josh Downs, Travis Hunter, Cedric Tillman, and Tyquan Thornton. bunch of other options in super deep leagues, stash on the end of my bench, if anything. I'm cool with that. And if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I am live every single Sunday helping you with your start-sit questions. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the quarterback, tight end, and defense rankings.